Mr. President.
The senator from New Mexico.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent that the Senate proceed to executive session to consider the following nomination, calendar number 365, that the Senate proceed to vote without intervening action or debate on the nomination, that if confirmed, the motion to reconsider be considered, made, and laid upon the table.
Is there objection?
Mr. President.
Senator from Idaho.
Mr. President, on behalf of myself, Senator Rubio from the great state of Florida, we both object.
Objection is heard.
Mr. President.
Senator from New Mexico.
Mr. President, I would ask to be recognized in morning business for as much time as I may consume.
Without objection.
Mr. President, my good friend, Senator Jeff Flake from Arizona, appeared here just an hour or so before and also spoke on the issue that I'm going to speak about today. That issue is the ambassadorship to Mexico and the woman that has been nominated by President Obama, Roberta Jacobson. Senator Flake made a very strong case. It's been a pleasure working with him on this in a bipartisan way. We believe this nomination has really, really strong bipartisan support. And we look forward to working together to get this to the floor and get an up or down vote. So I rise again today to urge support for Roberta Jacobson. She's a dedicated public servant. She's more than ready to be our ambassador to Mexico. The LA Times has called Roberta Jacobson among the most qualified people ever to be tapped to represent the U.S. in Mexico. We have a distinguished candidate, a career member of the senior executive service. She's ready to serve. We have strong support for her on both sides of the aisle. What we need now is an up or down vote. And once again, we fail to get one. It's hard to explain this dysfunction. When I talk to my constituents in New Mexico, they just don't understand this kind of dysfunction. They don't understand it, neither do I, frankly, and we are a border state. This is a critical position. It's critical to our security. It's critical to our economy. Earlier today, Senator Flake, Senator Klobuchar, and Senator Heinrich and I met with the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce about the urgent need to confirm this nomination. Our business leaders in New Mexico, Arizona, and every other state in our country are telling us they need an ambassador in Mexico City. We have ongoing border-related business, issues that need attention. From time to time, we will call on the Mexican government to take some action, to work with us on coordinating with ports of entry, infrastructure, and other important issues. We are at a disadvantage without an advocate for America in Mexico City. It's very frustrating, and this is not the first time we've faced this kind of dysfunction. I pushed for reform of the Senate rules in the last two Congresses, and we did change the rules to allow majority votes for executive and judicial nominees to the lower courts. But that does no good if they remain blocked, and that is what is happening in this Congress. This line gets longer and longer of perfectly qualified nominees denied a vote, denied an opportunity to be heard. Roberta Jacobson was approved by the Senate Foreign Relations Committee months ago with a bipartisan vote. Yet the weeks go by and still we wait. What is holding up her nomination? It isn't her qualifications. That isn't the problem. A big part of the problem is presidential politics and the policy differences with the administration over her work with Cuba. This year, we reopened diplomatic relations between the United States and Cuba. As the Assistant Secretary for the Western Hemisphere, Roberta helped negotiate on behalf of the administration. After over 50 years of failed policy towards Cuba, we have opened a 21st century relationship with the people of Cuba, one that has already seen change as more Cubans enter the private sector and more Americans, who are our best diplomats, continue to increase their engagement with the Cuban people. I congratulate the President for leading this historic change. Some disagree, I understand that, but their objection is with the president's Cuba policy. We're talking here about Mexico, an important position that has been unfilled since last summer, because a few senators would rather return to the failed policies of yesterday and are using Roberta to make a political point. Just when you think things can't get any worse, they do. Now a seat on the Supreme Court is empty, and the majority leader is actually arguing it should stay empty for over a year, no matter who is nominated by the president. This isn't governing. This is a failure to do one's job. Is it any wonder that the American people are frustrated, fed up with political games, with obstruction in the Senate, with special deals for insiders, and campaigns that are being sold to the highest bidder? They see this obstruction as just another example of how our democracy is being taken away from the people. Mr. President, each year we have a Student Leadership Institute in my state. High school juniors and seniors attend to learn about and discuss the challenges affecting our state and the nation. I always look forward to the meeting with these bright young people. They're smart and committed, and they raise thoughtful points about how government works and how sometimes it doesn't work. One thing we talked about this year was how important it is to listen. This is one of the most underrated virtues, especially in politics. Stating your views, but also listening to the views of others. I'm always optimistic when I see students engaged in that process. I only wish we could see more of it in Washington. The art of politics is standing your ground, but also finding common ground and listening to the American people. Our democracy depends on every voice being heard and on every vote being counted. We're losing that. We have to get it back, or we will continue to pay a heavy price. Because we can be sure of one thing: beyond all the money, beyond all the special interest, these students and all Americans deserve to be heard, and they deserve a democracy that works. Campaigns should be about the best ideas, not the biggest checkbooks or rigged districts. The U.S. Supreme Court created a wild west of campaign finance regulations with their decision in Citizens United and 2014 decision called the McCutcheon decision. They opened up a fire sale of super PACs trying to buy elections nationwide. We are seeing the results. From the Iowa caucuses to local elections in Las Cruces, New Mexico, we need to overturn those bad decisions. That's why I've led efforts to amend the Constitution, to restore power to Congress and to the states, to pass common sense campaign finance laws. We need to listen to the voters, not to the billionaires hiding in the dark corners. And that is why earlier this week I introduced legislation to abolish the broken Federal Election Commission. Congress created the Federal Election Commission to fight political corruption. After Watergate, that's when they created it. But today, partisan gridlock leaves the agency powerless and dysfunctional. It even fails to enforce the few campaign finance laws remaining on the books. The Federal Election Administration Act would create a new agency with 5 members appointed by the President and confirmed by the Senate. A chair would lead the agency. The remaining members would equally represent the political parties. It's modeled after a bipartisan proposal previously introduced by Senator John McCain and former Senator Russ Feingold. Super Tuesday was just 2 days ago. Once again, we are seeing record spending, including millions of dollars in undisclosed dark money. Without a strong watchdog looking over their shoulders, super PACs and billionaire donors have free rein to push the limits. It's clear that the FEC has outlawed its It's clear, absolutely clear, that the FEC has outlived its usefulness. We need a new agency, one with the power and the will to crack down on campaign finance violations. Mr. President, the Supreme Court has put billionaires and other special interests on a galloping horse. They're running away with our democracy, running away with our elections. We have created a dark money, special interest, gerrymandered train wreck, and the losers are the American people. That's why I've also introduced the Fairness and Independence in Redistricting Act, because part of that train wreck is the secretive and highly partisan congressional redistricting process, and we need to end it. The President highlighted this issue in his State of the Union address, saying, we've got to end the practice of drawing our congressional districts so that politicians can pick their voters and not the other way around. In most states today, congressional maps are drawn behind closed doors by partisan lawmakers. Their aim is to keep incumbents in office, and they do that. Pick almost any district in the country, and you'll see that almost every one is skewed to favor one party or another. We can end the gerrymandering status quo. Redistricting commissions should be independent. They should be led by citizens, not politicians. Arizona and California voted for reform, and they're already bringing new faces to Congress. The American people deserve fair elections, elections that are free of unlimited and hidden special interest money, and free of rigged district lines. Next year, I will meet again with students in my state. We will talk about leadership, about challenges, and about how government works. I hope that I will be able to say to them, we have moved forward. We have reformed a broken system. I hope that I can say to them, we have done our job and made sure that voters, not powerful elites, have their say. Thank you, Mr. President, and I yield the floor and note the absence of a quorum.